Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel, you know, we were talking just before we got started here, and an old cliche came to my mind. The cliche is the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence.
Sure.
Unless, of course, your author, Irma Bombeck, who says that the grass is greener on the other side of the septic tank. But we'll leave that one to her. The fact is, a lot of people believe that there's truth to that. And a lot of it, of course, depends on what their own situation is as to why they might feel that way. But as we wwere chatting, we realized that that's a fairly common thing, isn't it? I mean, it's all over the place.
Well, it's, you know, the idea, I've heard the term, this is just a general term called destination addiction. You know, the idea that there's some place that you're supposed to be. There's, you know, everybody wants to move. You know, one of the strangest hobbies that have developed in the age of the internet is the people who daily look around the country on Zillow for places to live. It is.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how, you know, I hear a lot about that. People just fantasize looking at these beautiful homes on the, you know, somewhere, and everybody has a belief that life is better somewhere else other than where they're at.
Right.
And it's, you know, the old concept is, you know, no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah.
So, you know, wherever you're at, if your mindset's wrong, it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to be miserable. But there's always something better on the other side. There's always something, and it's not true, but we have that idea that, oh, this person must have a better life, so I would love to be doing what they're doing or being where they're at. And, you know, you've heard me talk, I work with some fabulously wealthy people that, you know, on the surface, when you say, well, this person's a billionaire, they have no problems. They have some of the worst problems I've ever had to deal with. It's just, so there's an idea that things are better on the other side. One of the things I used to laugh at, I've shared this analogy before. When I was a child, when I was a young teen, my dad and I used to go fishing every Saturday morning. And we had a place called Lake Susan in Claremont. It was a great little place. And we would get in our little boat and we would go to the other side of this lake through a canal to fish.
Yeah.
And then we would pass another boat pretty much every Saturday morning who were coming to our lake to fish, and we were going to their lake to fish. So
right.
the idea that our lake clearly wasn't a good place to fish, that their lake was better, and we laughed about that every time because we almost passed them every Saturday morning.
Right. Right.
And that's that belief that, wow, this would be great if you had it or whatever. And it's not true. But what it does, it creates a lack of homeostasis. It creates a lack of feeling secure, a lack of life that is okay. So what you're signaling as far as the law of attraction goes is uneasiness, unrest, and it's not a way to attract that. And I'm always, you know, I don't know where my next move is going to be. It's going to be someplace great, I'm sure, but I don't know where it is. I want to make obviously an impulsive last minute decision, which I'm do.
Sure.
When it's time, I'll do it.
Show, right? I mean, we're looking forward to that report.
Yeah, and I have no idea where it'll be, and that's what I'm going to enjoy it, and I don't know how long I'll be there, but I know I'm going to do that. But it isn't a need to get away. I just I used to always tell my clients, never run from something to something. Always run to something. Don't run away from something. You wait till you find what you want or find what you want, and then run to it. And you know, it's the idea I got to escape, because usually the same things you're dealing with when you have that feeling you got to escape are going to take place in another location.
Yeah, well, that's just the problem, isn't it? But there's also a second piece to it, which you kind of alluded to. You talked about how people will do these kinds of things. They'll desire these kinds of changes in location and so forth without being willing to do work on themselves internally.
Yes.
And the ironic piece of that is, if you do the work internally, that's how you end up getting to the other place.
Yes, completely.
We reverse the order. I mean, that's a very common human tendency. We figure if I got to the other place, then I can do the work on myself, because it's going to be natural to be just part of that.
Well,
when
yeah.
in fact, it's the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the, that's the intuitive, most logical step when you don't know how this works.
Right.
Let me just get away from here where everything's wrong. I'll go to the new place and everything will be right. And if you haven't done the internal work and the stuff around that, then obviously the results are going to be exactly the same when you go. But it doesn't feel that way. So geographic cures never ever work, especially with addiction. Always geographic cures don't work. You got to do the work, and then you can go wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
But escaping something until you address what the underlying cause is, when you keep attracting the same partner, keep attracting the same dysfunctional situations, you're going to do that in a new location as well.
In fact, I'm reminded that there's a piece of art, if you will, of theater that directly addresses this. I'm thinking of a musical from about 65 years ago that really took the U.S. by storm and really all the world in the long run. It was called West Side Story.
Yes.
And one of the themes in that West Side Story is that there's a couple, there's a European origin young man and a Puerto Rican young woman who fall in love, and their communities can't handle the fact that they're together because that just violates all the rules. And in the process of the story being told, the two of them sing a song together. And the song is, "There's a place for us, a time and place for us." And the suggestion is, it's not here where we are on the west side of New York.
Right.
And look what happens. I mean, it's a very sad story, but at the end, he gets killed.
Yeah, that's wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stark way of bringing home. It's not about where you need to go. It's about what you're doing now within yourself.
And being, we talked about this last week a lot. We talk about this on some level every week, but being happy, learning to be happy, learning to be fulfilled where you're at, you have the life you want. That brings more of what you want, and that includes destinations. When the idea that there's not an easy way out if you don't do the work. That's the key. It isn't simply just saying I want to go there. It's dealing with the same redundancy. One of the things that is really frustrating when I deal with men in general, and me being a man, I can relate, obviously, is men basically have two responses to emotional situations.
Okay.
Silence or anger, the average man.
It's fairly common, yeah.
Yeah, they don't, women have 64 like crayons. They have 64 emotions for crayons. Yeah. I stole that from Mel Robbins, by the way.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, credit to Mel.
Yeah. So, but they have unlimited emotions for any situation. Some of them make no sense, but that's just a different topic. So, but men almost always respond with silence or anger, because vulnerability is just something that we believe we can't show, or crying, or anything that shows us as weak. So we just have to be silent and accept it. And I have historically had issues with that. I've done a lot of work over the years myself, as you know, but I've always, the emotional vulnerability is not always been my strongest suit. And it's something that is a childhood programming that men don't cry, men don't feel that. Real men wouldn't express that. And so we just end up being silent and avoidant and move on, or we get really angry and yelling. And I'm not a big angry yelling guy, so mine was always sort of the silent avoidant stuff. And it's a frustrating thing to be in, because there's so much you want to say,
right?
But when you have a belief system that's going to label you as weak, that's going to create that. So I've been dealing a lot with my athletes I work with. Grown men come in, and the ability to be vulnerable is really hard.
I understand that. And I will add to it that if you are a man like we are, and you desire to at least try to do something about that, it takes a lot of work to shift that. And it's worthwhile work. I don't want to suggest that it's not. I've also been working on that for myself, and I've achieved some great progress along the way, I would say. But there's also the side of it that, like you say, we do live in a society that rewards that. I mean, it isn't just that kind of happens. There are active reward cycles in play in our society that we regularly, as males, have to deal with on an ongoing basis.
I don't know if you saw this story. It's funny how our podcast always leads to certain things. There is a young man from Australia that got a scholarship to the University of Nebraska.
Okay.
And he's 18 years old. On his 18th birthday, they were interviewing him. And he was talking about he's 18, he's a baby. He's a gigantic baby, 270-pound baby, but but he was talking about being away from his brothers who were, I think, little, and being away from Australia and and he just broke down and started crying.
Wow.
And I found it an endearing moment of a young man that was missing his family. But the toxic sort of verbiage that are in the comments, he needs to man up, it's no big deal. And it was just this berating of this young man who was sort of caught off guard, but he's probably the healthiest person, on the team that was able to speak that and say that he misses his little brother. His little brothers are like 9 or 10. He misses them.
He was healthier than the people who were criticizing him. Actually.
Oh yeah. And so as I was reading through the comments, it's been brought up a lot because it's like ESPN was even running a thing saying, what happened here? Are we, that there's so much criticism and people calling him names and saying we need to check his gender and all these other things. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, I thought we were a little further than that. But so what happens is every 12-year-old boy that follows sports is seeing that. And so any vulnerability that they may have, they're going to say, I could never show that. So this one event has programmed millions of children to a thing that we've been trying to get away from. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic. I don't know the real effect it had, but this has been reposted multiple times, and it's all over the place, that this young man was simply crying because he misses his family, who he's never been away from. He's in a different country, and it just hit him at the moment of the interview. And it's now, to be fair, there's a lot of people stepping up supporting him too. Which is great. But
there's the indication of the thing you were talking about how we move forward. That is an indication of that.
It is. So I like to point out that, but I don't know, I haven't checked it, but I was just doing the first 100 comments, I sort of positive or negative.
Right.
Positive being supportive, young man, healthy expression of emotion. Negative being man up, all that toxic stuff. And it was about 70% toxic.
Really? That high?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how it continued. I mean, that can ebb and flow, but I know, just seeing that myself when some of the young guys I work with, that just once they're able to just understand and they realize, wow, I can express that safely and and it not impact and it really makes a difference. But it is, we're not giving a good example to men still, and it's a big thing.
I'll even go further than that. It's not just the young men, it's the young women as well. And the example that I'll give will be female athletes who play in the WNBA basketball league.
Yes.
Because one of the things that keeps coming up there, and I don't really follow a lot of the stuff up close, but every once in a while I'll catch, this happened, that happened, and I'll notice some of the commentary. And I saw, of course, one of the most famous stars in the WNBA is Caitlin Clark.
Yes.
And she's really kind of taken it by storm over the last couple of years. And there was some incident where Paige Beckers, who just joined us as a rookie, was in there was some thing that happened on the court where I don't know exactly what it was, but she thought she'd been fouled and she hadn't actually been fouled according to the referee and so forth. And one of the comments to her was, well, welcome to the WNBA. Toughen up, Buttercup. Well, gee, doesn't that phrase sound a little bit familiar?
Yeah, it does. You see that. You see that imagery. You see the verbiage and males and females and the roles they're expected to play. Even in my description, as when I was telling you about the story and the 64 emotions of a woman. I mean, that's a stereotype as well. I mean, it's women do have a lot. From my experience, have a lot wider range of emotions and have less trouble expressing them men in general. But nonetheless, it's just we have these roles that are sort of dealt out of how you're supposed to be. When somebody sees me, I have an image that they make an assessment of probably what I believe politically. They have, I've been, you never know, but I'm just saying we make assumptions that, like, oh my goodness, this guy, look at all he's been through. He's tough as nails. He's never been vulnerable. Well, I mean, I've been dead almost, and I've, had to, all that stuff I've had to go through. So I had to break all the molds for me to survive. But it's shocking that we're still here. In some ways seems like we have taken a step backwards too.
And actually, I'd like to chime in on the female side again, because I understand what you mean when you say that women are more often going to be able to express a wider range of emotion. I would say that that's marginally true, but there's also considerable evidence that shows that women in particular are not just encouraged, but actually in some ways forced to withhold emotion, to basically suck it up, buttercup. And it's not something that's recent. It's been going on for a long time. There was a post, I don't know if it was an interview or what, but it was of Madonna. And Madonna, she was getting an award or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but she was making commentary about the road that she'd taken to get to where she was. And she listed a whole series of really abusive things that had occurred to her during her career while she was on the rise, and comparing them to situations where male stars didn't have to go through the same kinds of things that she went through.
Absolutely.
And so she learned kind of the harsh way to suck it up, to hold it in and not let it out. Now, to her credit, she was taking the opportunity with this particular event to say, look, this has actually happened. This has been really going on for a long time. It's about time we own up to it. And I give her a lot of credit for that. But I mean, one of the biggest eye openers for me after Louise left and my marriage ended was re-entering the single space and finding out. I mean, I've probably dated, I'm going to guess 12 to 18 women during that time. Not extensive dating, but meeting dates, that kind of a thing. Every single one of them, without exception, I can't think of a single one that's an exception, has been through at least a medium level trauma in their life, and in most cases, severe trauma. And they didn't feel like, in many cases, they could talk about it. Well, that's the same thing as saying you can't emote about it either. You can't express the emotion. So it's really both sides. It's both
definitely, and different, so maybe different origins, but definitely both sides. And you see that. I know the females that I work with, and they're all that they've been through, and all that they bring to the table. Like, I saw this image one day of two people meeting. And it was a comic, or it wasn't really funny, but it was meant to be an example of these two people meeting for the first time. And you see right behind them is a huge bag of baggage on both sides. And it isn't about the meeting, it's about the traumas from the previous baggage, the way they're responding, the way, it's amazing to watch. And you see that when you meet somebody and you're very cautious. One of the things that I realized one time, I picked up this young lady on a date years ago, and she gets in the car, and I just had the radio on in the background, and she was very nice, and we met. This is long before the apps. We had met a few times, and I met her at the gym, of course. And that's where
of course.
Yeah. And so we get, but this is the first time in a dating situation. And so whatever song came on, it started playing, and she started crying. She said, "Could you turn that? That's my my song."
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And I did. And I didn't say anything, but I knew at that moment we're going to go have a nice dinner. And then I was going to bring her home because she wasn't ready to be out on a date.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many people, single or otherwise, aren't ready to be on the equivalent of a date?
Well, and because a lot of times you're on guard for previous pain. So when something happened before, you're on guard for that. So you're filtering for that being a possibility. So being abandoned, being cheated on, being ignored, I've seen that a lot. I have this thing that when I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be kept on a time clock. I'm I just don't like. I just like we're in a relationship. Either you trust that or you don't. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I have ironically attracted for years until I've done my work women that were hard that just wanted to know every second where I was at, convinced I was out cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing that would push me away the quickest, was feeling like they were checking up on me and they were being triggered by the fact that I was trying not, and it played off of each other. And I'm like, oh
Right.
my gosh. And I didn't know all this back then, but I realized, my traumatic and historical stuff was feeding on their traumatic and historical stuff. And it no chance of a healthy relationship with that.
Interesting how those can reinforce each other too. I mean, I would actually describe that as a law of attraction thing.
It is. Because you're attracting what you fear, because it's like this. I don't want you checking up on me. I don't want you, where are you at? What's going on? I'm always, I'm always open to the idea of, I'll be glad to tell you where I'm at. In today's world, I wouldn't mind sharing my location. That didn't happen back then, but it's this concept that I don't want to feel that way. And so that comes from multiple relationships where I was made to feel that way. And then often again, with history, I would attract women that had been cheated on, and they were expecting any time that they didn't know where I was at.
Yeah.
And there was one example in when I lived in South Carolina. I had a townhome, and it was about 25 minutes away from the treatment center. And I also had a tiny little house in the back that I used for needing to rest or whatever. And it wasn't part of the treatment center, but it had a bed back there. So one night on a Friday night, about 11:15, I had somebody land at Charlotte Airport. I had to check them in. So by the time I get them checked in, it's about 2 a.m. And I decided to go to the back house and just go to sleep.
Okay.
And next morning, I was going to get up and just go home and change and then go to the gym. That's my normal schedule. So this woman I was dating at the time woke me up. I got woken up a cold sleep. She called. Those were the old flip phone days.
Right.
And I go, hey, where are you? She said, where are you at? I go, I'm home. I'm just startled awake. I didn't mean to lie, but I'm like, yeah, I'm at home. That she starts screaming, I'm in your driveway and you're not here. Where are you? Are you? And I'm like, what? And I had to clear my head and said, no, I'm sorry. I'm at the treatment center. But and she's, I don't believe you. I'm going to come by. I said, no, let's stop. This is, and our relationship ended that day. It's just, I could, that was something I couldn't fathom that I had to go through. I did nothing wrong. But just for that moment, she was convinced that so if you're that distrusting, then we're not ready.
Yeah, true. And well, not just we're not ready. If you have that level of distrust, the honest thing to say is, I'm not ready.
I wasn't. Yeah, I'm not.
The person who's feeling the distrust needs to be able to admit that to themselves.
Yeah. And also me being so easily triggered by her was probably meaning I wasn't ready. Was definitely meaning I wasn't ready too. So
sure, yeah. Well, and that's the way it often works. I mean, it's pretty rare for one person to be ready and not the other person ready for a relationship, because that's not the way we tend to attract people in.
Yeah.
Either they're both ready or they're both not ready. Yeah. In my experience, anyway.
And I also have had this is in the same vein. I've also had a historical attraction to women that I couldn't have.
Well, there are a lot of people who have that experience.
Yeah, not so much anymore, but it'd be something like, wow, that you know what I mean? It made no sense, even though I logically knew, but somehow that's what and again, that was part of the baffling thing I had to work through many years ago.
Yeah. Well, there's even a whole theory that gets applied to describe why that happens. It's a theory that people have different status levels, and if somebody's a higher status person than you are, then they're not going to be interested in you, but you're going to be interested in them, and so forth. Which is a completely flawed theory in my view, because it basically means that unless everybody's on the same level, nobody's ever going to meet anybody.
Of course,
that could be a relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
So in my mind, the theory doesn't really hold water, but I understand where it's coming from, and I would add that the theory not only has that flaw that I mentioned, but it also is based on something that is really not true. that the other person has a status level independent of you. Whereas the truth of the matter is the status level is one that you or they perceive to be there because of how you feel about yourself and how they feel about themselves. And
Completely.
somehow that always gets left out of the conversation. I'm not
Oh
quite
yeah.
sure why that is.
Well, when two healthy people have healthy self-esteems, meet and they connect, there's a really good shot of a really healthy relationship.
Right.
When either side is unhealed, there's very little shot at a long-term healthy relationship. And and you know that it's that's why people, I've almost said women, but the people tend to attract the same dysfunction constantly until you do your work.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a hard thing to acknowledge and admit to as well. I had this is not parallel, but it has a similarity. I had a guest on earlier today who, for the last 50 years, has been battling schizophrenia. And he's actually made some progress, especially in the last few months, really big progress. And he's very proud of the growth that he's gone through and so forth. But the progress that he made after 50 years was to not only admit that he had the issue, but to decide that he could move past it. It took
Ah,
50 years to come to that conclusion. And you know how big that is. I
that's
mean,
huge.
because you encounter that, that need all day long with working with your clients. But it took that long for him to recognize I have a choice about this. I'm not tied into this thing. It's not something that I am now identified with being schizophrenic. I can choose to leave it behind. It's such a radical thought that most people won't even accept it. But there's a great deal of truth to it.
Which you know how I feel about those kind of things. I completely on board with what he's saying.
Yeah.
Where the traditional Western medicine disagrees with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've done whole conversations on that one. We'll stay away from that one today. But
Yeah. That's a deep rabbit hole too. Well, yeah, I'm not in that mood, but that's like talking about the Catholic Church or something. Let's don't do that.
Yeah, we'll avoid that one.
Yeah, but you're right. The perspective of your belief system, what you're really believing. If you what are you wanting? And I have a friend that he's been married like 4 times, and
Mm,
he just keeps on the same cycle. And he finally came to the place of doing the work, and he actually did a psilocybin experiment or treatment. And he said something I never thought I heard him say. He goes, I don't think that I need to be in any relationship for at least 2 years.
wow.
And I go, oh my God, that was, I mean, he just said the I just keep getting into the same situations, and these are really nice women. And I keep finding myself drawing myself back into the expectation of all the trauma from before. He
Yeah.
said, I just need a couple years off. And he said, I might not ever get married again. I don't know. But right now, I'm just taking a break from being with a woman. I'm looking for, just self work, internal work, and
Yeah.
see where we go. And I thought that might be the healthiest thing I've ever heard him say.
It's fabulous that he said that. And I can identify with it personally because I literally said very much the same thing back before I met Louise, my first wife. Now, I declared it about, I'm going to say 2 months before I was introduced to her. And the way I declared it was a little bit more drastic than that. It wasn't just taking a 2-year break. It was, I'm done.
Right.
I can't do this anymore. So I don't even want to meet anybody ever again.
Right.
And then within a month, a good friend of mine says, hey, I have a friend who wants to meet you. You want her number? I said, no, I don't want her number.
No.
And fortunately, my friend was a psychotherapist and helped me come around. And I ended up calling Louise. And we had a 23-year marriage. So it all worked out pretty well for that, especially in those earliest years. But would I have gotten to that point without the support? I don't know. What I do know is that within a very short period of time, after I made the decision that I was done, there was a huge release basically that I did. I released a bunch of anxiety. I released a bunch of angst. And in the process, I opened myself up to something that couldn't have happened before.
What I've shared this concept before. This one family in particular that I worked with several years ago. They were on my schedule. I didn't know what they wanted to see me for. They was referred by a local doctor. I didn't know who this doctor was, and so I like, okay, referred by all that, trying to fix. So I sit down and they start talking, and they had been working with this fertility doctor for a long time,
Mm.
and spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get pregnant.
Mm.
And there was something with her that made it difficult to get pregnant or whatever. But so they said, I said, I think he referred to the wrong person. I don't do that. That's not my thing. And she goes, no, very specific you. So I called the nurse of this doctor. No, he wanted you to see him. And so I thought, oh, because I work with foster care kids, that he wants me to sell them on the idea, since they can't have kids, of adopting a child. So I started down that. I'm like, okay. And I said, have you guys ever considered adoption? I wanted to have our own. I said, but if that weren't necessary. So I explained the adoption process, how it can work, how therapeutic foster care and then can be helpful in transitioning from a foster to adopt, and all the I said, we have, I have a lot of connections with this. We can really help. So they were like really excited. And so I gave them the contact information from this I call it a service, but it's a place that finds kids, foster care kids, in permanent homes. I do a lot of work with them. So I was like, okay, great job. It's weird that he sent me. I've never met this doctor before, but so they called and said, hey, can we have a follow-up appointment, talk more about, and I said, yeah. So we met 2 or 3 times and I made connections. So they got approved to be a foster parent to move to adoption. So that's a very tough process. It takes a while to get there. So I was really excited. And within 2 days of them being approved, she realized she was a month behind on her period. And she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God. And she said, they said, oh my, we're pregnant. Now the great news, if anybody's wondering, they went ahead with the adoption and all that worked out well. And they had a healthy baby girl.
Fantastic.
And so eventually I meet this doctor, and I'm like, I don't know if you know what I do. You sent me this couple. He goes, you did exactly what I wanted you to do. He said they were so stuck on can't get pregnant. They were measuring the temperature of her uterus or whatever they were doing, and they were measuring cycles, and they were wanting it so bad she couldn't get pregnant. Once they got distracted and gave up on getting pregnant, they stopped all the fertility drugs, all that. Now they're focused on their adopted kid, and they got pregnant. And I go, heads up next time. Just let me know what I'm doing.
A little advance warning would be nice. Yeah.
I said, I had no idea why you sent me to it. I've never. And he said, no. He said, I know you through another doctor. And he said, yeah, Joel will know what to do. I said, but you got to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. I would have done it easier, but it worked out perfect.
Next time that you hear a referral from that particular doctor, you'll say, okay.
I know what I'm doing now. But but it's something that, once it's like the law of attraction of wanting something too bad.
Exactly.
It's when you almost, like you're saying, I'm done, I'll give up. Once you stop chasing, it shows up so often. And that's what you did. You just, okay, I'm sick of this, I'm giving up. And then the resistance has been removed, and then the right person or right situation can show up.
And I honestly, at the time, could not have told you that was what was going on. But as I look back on it, I realized I actually did feel it. What I felt was a release of tension, a release of anxiety, because I'd given up. And it's like I needed a break. And so I'd given myself a break. What I didn't realize is that giving myself that break was also, like you're saying, it was making it possible for me to attract an actual healthy relationship into my life for a change, which will be a really nice change at that point. And it was a nice change at that point.
But that happens so much when, I've referred to this a lot. This is way back. I mean, pretty early when we're doing this, we took a question on the air from a guy years ago. And
I think I remember which one you're talking about too.
Yeah, he wrote, and I have a pretty good memory. He said, been following you guys for a while. It's been very helpful. The original reason that I wanted the law of attraction to work was I wanted a relationship.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that hasn't come about, but my finances and health have improved greatly.
Yes. Yes.
And
The unintended consequence.
yeah, and I said, well, that you and I both answered that was saying, well, the stuff you just put out there, good health, financial and all that, and that came about because you weren't. But what you were chasing, you were giving off the I'm desperate, I like that, so you're
Yeah,
pushing it away. And that
exactly.
was the perfect example of stuff he didn't even he didn't really. The other stuff was important, I guess, but it wasn't his main focus. The relationship was what he was desperate for.
Those unintended consequences are really fascinating too, because I can think of a guest who was on the show one time. She was a really cool guest. We had a great conversation, and she was talking about a method that she uses to basically keep her vibe up, keep her attitude up, focus on positives and so forth. Her method was really quite simple. She'd get a pad of Post-it notes, and then anytime that she came up with something that she thought was like a really affirmative kind of a statement, she'd write the Post-it note and post it someplace in the house. And they were like all around the mirror in the bathroom. They were in the kitchen. They were in the living room. They were next to the TV. I mean, they were just posted all over the place. And a completely unexpected byproduct came out of this. Her husband started working on himself just by seeing the same notes all over the house continuously. And he wasn't
Absolutely.
even trying to do it. He wasn't trying to make any changes, and he just started doing it.
Well, one of my clients started working with probably 6 years ago, and she had a very complex, difficult, very wealthy family, but relationship with her son. He had a lot of addiction issues. Her at the time she was married to her husband, who had an open affair with this lady, and there was so much going on in her life, and when she was describing that, I said, well, she said, well, what are we going to do about all that? And I go, nothing. We're going to work on you. And I said, so I will tell you this. I'll make one promise to you. So you're not going to believe this until this happens. If you do your work, everything else will fall into place. I don't know how. I don't know what's going to happen. So her son, who was a severe alcoholic and always having just really in and out of rehab, eventually stopped drinking and started working out. Her ex-husband and her the ex-husband now, they got a very healthy divorce and are far better friends now than they ever were in a relationship.
Wow.
They're doing fantastic. And she said, once I healed myself, everybody else, it's magic, like you said, they did. I said, but you didn't have to do anything. They saw your growth and they decided to do it. But as long as you all were stuck in that dysfunction, you were lost. And so the work done, it isn't you never have to work on another person, just work on yourself, and their response to you will change for sure.
Yeah, it reminds me of a really great example that was presented to me one time. The idea that people use the analogy of getting your ducks in a row as a way of saying you got to get everything organized in your life. You have to make sure everything's working right, dot your I's, cross your T's, all that kind of thing. And the person who shared the insight with me pointed out that that's not how mother ducks actually get their ducks in a row. The way the mother ducks get their ducks in a row is they start waddling, the ducks line up behind them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no pre-planning. There's no scheming it out. There's no
That's a
figuring out.
great example because
They just
that's
start walking.
yeah, they just start walking and quacking, and the little ones get on the
There
line.
they
And go out. There's mom, so you don't have to. It's just getting your. I'm going to use that analogy. Whoever told you that's great, because I've never used that one before. But it's true that's how you fix things, all things, by working on you, and then everything. You don't have to orchestrate the rest of it. That's where the law of attraction is so great. It when you use it properly, you don't have to worry about all those details. As Mike Dooley used to say, the cursed hows don't matter. It doesn't matter. You take care of you, work on these things, and everything will magically fall into place.
Which is a very controversial idea the first time you encounter it.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, I remember the first time I read that one, I kind of like gave it a sideways look. Like, well, I suppose maybe. I didn't realize how brilliant it was.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I've always appreciated his view, his old view of things, of law of attraction, and that especially Plague the Matrix, one of my favorite underrated law of attraction books, by the way. And when you understand that, and you understand these things work, and you don't have to do the things you think you have to do. Lacking money is you don't have to go chase money. You
Mhm.
have to have an abundant mindset, and then the things fill the place. Now, as
Mhm.
you know, I'm also a big believer in taking action. So there's an
Absolutely.
action component for me that's
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah.
Uh, Action combined with intention is the most powerful form of the law of attraction.
I think the other thing I love that about what you say too, because I think you're right. The only thing I tend to add on is I believe that emotion plays an important role. That ties into what we talked about earlier. You were talking about men basically
Sure.
choosing between being angry or sullen. There's not like a third option. And for women, it's a little bit different, but they also learn how to bury the emotions too. The whole idea that emotion is the power. I think it was Dooley actually who said this, that if you're trying to attract something, that's the equivalent of getting behind the wheel of a car. But hitting the gas is how you apply the emotion. That's where the real
Absolutely.
power of it comes in.
And with anything, and I'm glad you pointed out. So anything that I ever say is an assumption that your emotion is in the right place. So
Yeah,
the starting ground for law of attraction is being emotionally in the right position.
right.
That's
Yeah.
it. That there's nothing action, and action doesn't matter. Nothing matters until that is there. That's a prerequisite for walking out the door. After that, action and intention become your catalyst.
And this ties also into what we talked about a moment ago. My experience of giving up on relationships with women, and all of a sudden I get a relationship with a woman. Well, what I'd let go of was a low vibrational belief system that said I can't ever get the woman I want to have, no matter what the circumstances are. Once I let
Absolutely.
go of that, up went my vibration, and now, boom, I'm ready to receive an actual woman coming into my life who actually wants me.
Well,
It's funny how that works.
and that's the same thing in my situation. For me, is I had this narrative for a long time. I got this ADHD brain.
Mhm.
I exhaust myself. I can't imagine what I do to other people. So I had this narrative that there's just I would either have to dumb all that down, or I just couldn't have. And I figured out the right person is going to accept that and appreciate that value.
Yes. Which means ultimately you had to find a way to appreciate it yourself.
Absolutely. And because it's like when you fight, if you don't have an ADHD brain and understand how exhausting that can be. So for the longest time, I fought that. I tried to calm that. I tried to control that, and that is where the exhaustion takes place.
Mm.
And I just learned at some point to just let it go, let it flow. I can't control. I don't have to pay attention to it. I don't have to listen or respond to you know every question my brain asks. I can just say, I'll answer that tomorrow. Don't worry, we'll get there tomorrow. But and then once you stop servicing your brain to just that sort of that hyper arousal state, it eventually goes, okay, he's not going to participate anymore, and it does slow down.
Yeah. What it does for me is and this I picked up fairly early in my understanding of how the whole thing works. It reinforced for me that it actually is extraordinarily simple. If you don't know what to do, there's one thing that you can always do that's going to be a payoff, and that is to feel better.
Yes,
Which was revolutionary for me, because I think you may remember there was a time where I didn't think it was possible for me to have that kind of control. I literally did believe that the only way I could have an emotion about something is if it was the default emotion for whatever the event was. That
absolutely.
that every event had a particular kind of emotion attached to it. And once I finally experienced that that wasn't true, and I did it consciously, well, first of all, it was a shock, because I basically had taken 50 years doing the wrong thing. but, but beyond that, it was also a stunning eye opener. Like, well, this means that if I can control the way I feel about what's going on in general in my life, I don't have to think about a particular thing. Just if I can get myself into a better feeling place, better things are going to happen. And I remember the first time I formulated it that way in my mind, and my instant reaction from my monkey brain was, yeah, that's not true. But I stuck with it. I kept revisiting it because I was realizing there was so much evidence that supported it. And so the more that I tried it, the more I realized all I gotta do is raise my vibration.
That's it.
I mean, it's great if you can take the action. Certainly, that's going to speed things up. It's great if you can, do these other things we talk about. They're all going to be helpful. But if you have only one thing you can do, if you feel like it's not possible for you to do anything more than one thing, you do that one. You're giving yourself the best chance you're going to get.
Well, and that's what I was saying a little earlier. getting your emotions in place, your vibration in the right place, then and the order for it to work for me is vibrating at the right frequency, and then action is easy. Action,
Yeah, good point.
the other things are easy. I don't. In fact, I get very frustrated if I were taking action in a low vibrational state, because that feels very frustrating and useless in my mind. So I don't even engage action until my vibration is right.
You were just reminding me of something. I have a good friend that I was having a conversation with very recently, and the friend was expressing that, in her opinion, I was giving more to our friendship, to our relationship, than she was. And from my perspective, the stuff that I was giving was easy because I was just doing it from a high vibrational space. It was like, this was not difficult to give you this and this and this and this. It was, but from her perspective, they were huge. And
Yeah.
she felt she wasn't getting anything back. Well, it's actually not true, but she was convinced that she was not giving anything back. So it was an unbalanced relationship.
Yeah.
And it really pointed out to me, when we're in a high vibrational space, it is easy. I mean, there really isn't a whole lot of work when you're in a high vibrational space, but when you're in that low vibrational space, everything is exhausting.
Yes.
Everything will just one thing will wipe you out.
Oh, well, you know, when you're in a low vibrational state, the catastrophic thinking turns on.
Yeah.
You awfulize everything. You take everything to the worst possible conclusion, and that's why it's imperative to find that right vibration. That's fundamental. That's what took me the longest time to really understand. I can't attract from that state. So instead of trying to aggressively attract, which has a reverse effect, I got to raise my vibration. I got to reprogram that, and that is done. We talk about that at great lengths, but whatever your way of doing that is, like, to me, walking out the door, I have to have a minimal, pretty good vibration. Then every day pretty much I go to the gym, which takes my vibrational level to the highest level for me. Right. And at that point, my day's on cruise control.
That's great. That's the end result that anybody wants.
Yeah.
You want to be in cruise control, because cruise control is easy.
Yeah.
You hardly even think about it. You just kind of go with life. Yeah. At that point, it's good.
Well, this morning, actually, I found out yesterday. So my office, it's 95 degrees here yesterday. So this story gets better now. But my air conditioning system at my office broke yesterday afternoon. So this morning, I get up and I have this, not anxiety, it's not a good term, but dealing with property managers and air conditioning repair people. None of this is easy. You know what I mean? It's just, so I got up thinking I said, you know what? I want to stop all of that. I need to eat my good breakfast. I need to go to the gym, and then I will be able to attack whatever with a much better mindset, because I get really frustrated with incompetence, or my perception of incompetence. So if I report my air condition out on a Sunday to the emergency number and I don't have somebody out Monday morning, I'm like, what's the point of having an emergency number? But I also want to bring some civility to it and also understand that person's position. They want to make sure that I get that taken care of. So I have to have the right mindset before I get involved in those kind of things. And the simple solution for me is I did everything virtually except one appointment. And the young man wanted to go sit by the James River and basically throw rocks and skip rocks, as we had a session. And the beautiful day, cloudy, river was beautiful, flowing smoothly. Great day to be out there. So I had a great moment of reflection with an incredible young man. We had a great session that he told his mom, he said, can we do that every time?
Well, that's really rough, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
No, that's really great. That's absolutely fabulous. You're reminding me of something else too. Something I've developed as a habit. I know you do very much the same thing. Throughout the day, I'm checking in with myself. I kind of take my emotional temperature. How am I doing? What am I feeling at this particular point in time? And one of the reasons I do that, actually the main reason I do that, is to notice when I'm dipping. When I'm dipping into, I could be working on something I actually enjoy, but this happens just all the time in life. You reach a point where things just don't seem to be clicking and you get frustrated with it and so forth. And what I've been learning to do, and I'm still learning it, but I've mostly learned it. When I notice that that's happening, I just stop the work. I mean, you can't do that quite so much because you're scheduled to do sessions, but even there, you still find ways to break things up, and that's what I'm doing. I'm breaking it up and saying, yeah, okay, I got to work on this thing, but not right at this moment because right now my vibration isn't very good. So I got to go do something else to shift my vibration.
That's the answer. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah. So I mean, lately my thing, as you know, I have an electronic keyboard. So lately my thing is stop and go play a song, just one song. That's it. Well, sometimes two. It depends how I'm feeling. Sometimes I need 3 or 4.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes, I don't play the keyboard, but I might have a rebounding trampoline in my house. I might do 15 minutes of jumping anytime.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I place I live has this beautiful pond, walking area. It's perfect distance. I walk down there, spend some time. They have a bench there. It's not the bench,
Excellent.
but it's a bench.
Though. That's good.
Any bench in the storm, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
But having outlets to that. But the one thing that I cannot do is go wallow in things. I cannot just sit there. That's me. I just I learned that.
Well, I've learned that I can do that. That's the problem.
Well, that's a better way of saying it. I'm capable of that.
I'm quite capable of it.
Yeah, but it's something that it doesn't serve me because I don't like how that feels.
Yeah. Well, not only does it not serve you, not only do you not like how it feels, but this is the part that really drove it home for me. When I'm in the space of not being in high vibration, I try to do this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
It never works.
It never works.
It always produces bad results every time.
Yep.
And boy, if you want to sour yourself on something you enjoy doing, there's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely.
So vibration, I think we're definitely in agreement. Vibration, or to put it another way, how you're feeling matters tremendously. And of course, it's very easy because you don't have to even apply words to it. I mean, Abraham Hicks has like 22 words they assign to it, which I understand. For me, it's better or worse. That makes it very simple. I don't have to handle a lot more than that.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, once I boiled it down, I said, oh, geez, even I can do that one. But in the process of applying that, by making it easy, there's something about taking a very simple process and applying it in a way that you can just kind of do it automatically.
Yes.
You don't have to think about it much. Something about that just makes it easier to do.
I completely agree.
I mean, it's like the Sean Aker, the happiness guy, the positive psychologist. He made a point one time about how he wanted to play more guitar, but the problem was the guitar was in a case in the closet.
Yeah.
And what he finally realized was, well, I got to get a guitar stand and put the guitar stand next to the chair in the living room so that I'll be able to see it all the time. And I bet you if I do that, I'll play it more often. And sure enough, that's what happened. And what he found, he actually put together a research study on the thing. And it was like a 50% likelier thing that if somebody wanted to do something and they put the thing in immediate vicinity of where they were most of the time, they were going to be 50% more likely to do it than if they put it 200 feet away, packed away in a closet or something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, any idea whatever happened to him? I haven't heard from him in years.
I haven't heard from him in a while. No, I haven't checked up on him. But the last I heard, he was doing a lot of corporate events. So that may be why we aren't really hearing about him.
Yeah, he's so good. His TED Talk is one of the best of all times. Yeah. Yeah.
He has one of the funniest TED Talks I've ever heard. I remember the graph. I love the graph. Yeah. I mean, you basically see a picture of a graph. First of all, he even admits, he starts off by saying, I was told that I should never start a talk with a graph. I'm going to start my talk with a graph.
Yeah.
Show you this graph. He says, by the way, all the data on this graph is fake. Just to let you know.
But he was, Sean Aker, if you look up his TED Talk, it's amazing. If you haven't seen it. It made the rounds and it dominated. And then, like you said, I think he got out of the general public stuff and did a lot of corporate stuff. But we need a book or another TED Talk from him. We do. He's really good.
Yeah, he's really amazing. Well, that's another example of the kind of thing you've shared. You shared a lot of personal experiences that were, in many cases, horrific, and in other cases, terribly challenging, and so on and so forth. And they're always really interesting stories because they lead to here's where the positive result that comes out of it unexpectedly.
Right.
And he had a number of those too. I mean, he was in one sense, he was what they call privileged. He went to Harvard. He was a Harvard University student. But he also had the privilege of watching what happens when Harvard students go to Harvard.
Yeah.
And just how they beat the crap out of themselves and how to be better with all their self-criticism. I mean, it's brutal the way, Harvard, Yale, all the top schools treat themselves. The students just are horribly rough on themselves. And the stories that come out of that are fascinating. I mean, I remember the one where he was a resident advisor in a dormitory. And there were two young ladies who came in as freshmen, and they were both, well, anybody who goes into Harvard has, really, really high standards, high scores, all that kind of thing. So they were both like that. One of them spent the entire semester in the library. She was just devoted, just going every day to the library, doing her homework, doing her studies, and so forth. The other one took a different tack. She decided to become like the dorm organizer. So she'd organize games. She'd organize, activities for everybody. She'd organize people going to the cafeteria together, all this kind of stuff. And by the time the second semester came around, the first one was burned out. The second one was thriving.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, now, is that something that most people would have predicted up front? Most people would have predicted that the one who put her nose in the books was going to be ahead.
Well, if you understand the process, no, but that would be I have this young lady that she went to collegiate, as our collegiate school here in Richmond is the preferred upper end private school.
Mm-hmm.
They have 100% success rate to really good. I mean, anybody wants to go to it's just they do everything right. And it's a great school. It's not my version of a great school, but if you're using that normal stuff, it's great.
Yeah.
So there's this young lady that was there, and she had this, because she had honors classes, she had this 4.95 GPA average, almost I think a perfect SAT, just everything, all these projects, and had severe anxiety. And so her parents, they weren't driving her, she was driving herself. They were like, she could dial it way back and we're good. We don't expect all this. And her thing was, I have to be able to get to, an Ivy League school. I got to get into an Ivy League school. And that was her daily driver. And I kept asking, why? Why? And well, that's just the best. And I go, okay, they're good. I'm not minimalizing Ivy League schools, but you're approaching it from a way that you're ruling out all these other great options, and you don't even know what you really want to do with your life. And so getting her to a place of, I still want her to study hard. That's her goal. Let's reach her goal, but let's do something else. Let's not worry about that last little thing. And I got her to, in her words, cut back 15%. She had to have a number, so she gave it 15%. She was happier. She still got accepted into Colgate, which is a good school. And
I graduated from. I will agree with you.
yeah. And so she got accepted. And she also reported a much higher satisfaction with life. And so when she went to school, I said, there's a secret that a lot of people don't want you to know. There's not an employer that is really going to look at your B+ or your A-. It's
true.
It's true. I've hired thousands of people. I have never looked at somebody's grade. If you got the degree, you got the degree. That was it.
Right.
I never checked that. And in fact, if I'm hiring and somebody had nothing but a 4.0, I'm going to be like, ooh, I don't know about that, but just to get her to accept that it doesn't have to be that. And she's now since graduated, she's doing really well. She ended up being an advocate, an attorney, but she helps, like with death penalty cases, help get people that are falsely accused and serving time. So she has a very active job. She's sort of famous for doing that.
Wow.
And has a very fulfilling life. And so when, she stops in every now and then and says hi. And one day she goes, you remember The Secret? And I thought she'd come out the book. And I go, of course. She goes, no, the other secret. And I go, what? They go, nobody looks at your grades. She said, she said, nothing helped me more than you convincing me of that.
Wow.
She said, graduate, and she still graduated with honors, but she said none of that mattered. When she went to apply for the job, none of it mattered. All the stuff she worried about didn't matter. She had this resume and all this other stuff that's fabulous. And they said that they interviewed her, said, you're so passionate about what you do. We would love to have you. And the guy said, you obviously have a lot of great academics, but that's not why we're hiring you. We're hiring you for your passion.
It's fascinating to me that we started this conversation off focused on the idea that people look to externalities rather than going within to get their solutions in life, to find, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, that idea.
Right.
And we ended up, I don't think we actually deliberately did it, but we ended up coming up with a whole bunch of examples of how people, including ourselves, believed that the grass was going to be greener if we did this, the grass was going to be greener if we did that.
Absolutely.
And when we let go of it, we ended up getting what we wanted.
That was the moral of the story the entire time. We stuck with it with a bunch of different avenues.
I mean, that means we didn't actually go down a rabbit hole. How did we manage that?
I'm really angry about that, and next week we need to address it. Yeah, let's do something controversial to get a rabbit hole.
I like the fact that we have something to work on. That's a good thing.
Yeah, we usually get way off on something before you bring us back. So today we did not.
Well, we just had to break it up a little bit, just one time.
Yeah. Let's talk quantum theory next week. Let's do that.
I love it. Yeah. Oh my God. Record this, Jen. I don't know if you're listening. Joel said quantum theory. Not me. Came out of the man's lips. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Talk about a rabbit hole. I've been researching that a lot lately too. Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, fabulous. I love this. Thank you so much, and looking forward to talking about whatever it is we end up talking about.
Absolutely. Let's don't do quantum theory. That was a joke. Let's don't do
All right. Yeah. Well, I may not tell her that. I'm not sure. But anyway, thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. And goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.